So there is a so this is what I believe we discussed yesterday, right? Having this next sprint be like a nice month cadence, and really focusing on what I'm calling now slow and steady for the February 6th to March 5th timeframe. So rather than have a 2-week cycle, we'll have a 4-week cycle for this next sprint. It's not, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done, but the cadence is sort of a mismatch for the amount of work and the amount of people who are like really working full time on this. Anything anybody, Bear, Gideon, or Nate, or Honka, anything that you want to add to that understanding before we get started? Or was there anything else we wanted to discuss during this period, during this hour, or less?
Yeah, so
Okay.
I
Yeah, go ahead.
in that doc, I kind of like created an agenda, and I just wanted to include like some points that I've been thinking about in regards to this. What would be kind of like, because I'm thinking that maybe at some point this could also become in some sort of more standard call that we do every month. And we try to discover this middle gear that we've been missing. So I just included here a couple of questions. How does this look like? How do we represent this middle gear in Notion? Is that with the projects dashboard that we already have, and what does this process actually look like? Would it take that maybe we every month we go back to the strategy document and we revisit that and we make sure that we're aligned to that? uh, does that mean that we have some sort of roadmap that I know it's already one here in Notion created, that we update and we are always constantly looking into the future, into the next quarters, based on our yearly objectives, and then we plan backwards to these that we currently are planning to? So what does this process look like? I think for me it'd be interesting to think about that, and then yes, actually jumping into the actual planning for February. I just kind of like listed there the different priorities that I see that are crucial for this month, so we can also talk about that. So I just wanted to point that out to you, Tam, so you are aware of these points.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks. That's super helpful. So maybe do you want to do this first part? Because
Sure.
I
Yeah.
was really
Yeah.
gonna just really jump right into it.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
I'm happy to, I mean, if it makes sense for us to have some more conversation for this, yeah, let's do that.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, those are my thoughts, the ones I wrote there. But maybe if people find it useful, we can share about how we see the purpose and the structure of this call. Uh, if it's useful, if not, maybe we can just jump into the planning.
Yeah, I would say, so building on what you're saying, Bear, I think it would be good. We have a window right now before these people are hired, and we jump into actually executing. Like we've got this little window. What are we trying to? What are we really trying to nail down? From that strategy document, what do we need to concretize? We have 4 weeks. How do we use that? I put the strategy doc in the chat.
I just want to mention that I feel that my idea of also regranting for commons projects is not being like included, and I'd really love if I can receive like a straight response and feedback to see if it'd be better for me to not continue repeating the same thing over and over again. Because what I feel is that I repeat some things, but that they bounce, and I would like to permeate um, on this. So if it's just a bad idea, if there's not support on the team for regranting and including commons related projects or cultural development projects, I'd be also happy to know it in advance, because that's also demanding for me.
I can mention something. I mean, I think it's super important what you're saying, Juanca. I think it has a lot to do with the strategy and how we plan out our rounds. But I think that the thing that is probably happening is that we are probably still not there yet in terms of actually thinking about the next round and how is that going to look like and what's going to be the criteria, what's going to be the scope for that type of round. Um, because I think there's, like there was this question about the strategy, confirming the strategy, then you start talking about, okay, who's going to execute on that strategy, so the people, the hires, okay, so the budget, what are going to be the numbers for everything that we want to do. And I feel that once we have all of these pieces more developed, then we can start actually thinking about the next rounds, right? And how are they going to look like, and what are the lessons learned that we've gotten from the past, and how can we adjust that. If you look at the February, like this agenda that I shared as a priority for February, I think it will be important to actually start thinking about the next QF rounds, because it's not that far away, right? And it will be important to start bringing up all of these questions about what's the scope and what type of projects should we admit. So that's what I would say. That's my response. I don't want you to feel that you're not being heard. I think it's just a matter of probably like prioritization right now, and just going by an order.
Yeah, I would add. I mean, I understand. I think it's important that I give you my honest assessment. My honest assessment is that the TEC in the first wave, we invested a lot in the cultural aspects, which were great, but the problem is that the external perspective within the token engineering community was, I think there was a lot of questions about that. And when we really did focus on token engineering projects for the grants rounds, is when the TEC started to get some external momentum, right, with Gitcoin and things like that. And I think that as we move into the optimism world, it's going to be important initially to like really be clear about that messaging and that signaling that this is token engineering, and that it's more externally focused investments, and that it's really about driving funding into the field itself, and making sure that that is the reputation that we have is in doing that. And once that starts to spin, and once we start to get more funding coming back, like once we can start to refill the coffers, refill the common pool, then I think it gives us more opportunity to free up funds to then continue to like set aside some portion of our overall budget to then start to reinvest in the commons, in the cultural build, and like continue to rebuild the culture, and ensure that the culture is there. But and maybe what all you're talking about is a very small amount, and so that could be, maybe these things coexist. But I guess that's my sense, is that right now there's some very basic things that we need to focus on in order for this strategy with optimism to succeed. And so I think just being very focused on that, and knowing that if we succeed, then we will have more funding coming in and we can do more of that kind of work. That's my view.
I really appreciate the honesty, because that also helps me set my own boundaries. And yeah, I think that working on culture in a technological environment requires some intention to subvert um, biases, and that it's easy to like go with what's the mainstream idea or the mainstream understanding, but that it requires also um, a lot of innovation to talk about the things that are being underseen and that play a valuable role also in the bigger scope. But um, yeah, I completely understand the criticism, and that maybe there's people that don't see value out of cultural products, but also something that I think is that even when it was spent from the common pool, some of those projects are still going on, and that also means that there's external value being seen into some of the projects that were developed initially. But yeah, I appreciate the honesty, and I don't want to continue crashing um, with the team, so I will like stop repeating this. Um, and yeah, maybe um, as an incentive um, that I see on participating in this type of calls is not only hearing, but also being an active contributor. And yeah, maybe I will be more prudent um, to not try to um, give some ideas that maybe are not in the priorities.
Well, I should say that's just my opinion. I don't know how others feel about it. And also, I think it's important to understand that the culture, from my perspective, the culture part is going to be. I think that is the differentiator. That is the long term thing that makes the TEC like based on ethics. Um, and so I think that's the long term differentiator. And I guess my question is just like how do we survive, and how do we get this thing going? How do we get this economy spinning to the point where it's no longer a question of whether we will survive? That's my biggest driver right now.
I'm going to throw in my 2 cents too, if that's okay with everyone. So honestly, I think this is also like I do agree with what you've shared, Gideon. Of course, I agree with what you've shared, Barrett, too, as well. It being sort of like priority and timing, and what is the focus? Like, what are we really like laser focused on and not diluted? But like, I have been feeling a lot of frustration these last few weeks because we have these good ideas, and Juanca, maybe it is a good idea to focus on cultural aspects, but there's no one to do the work now. So we can talk about what we would like to do every meeting, but until there's someone who can take that and make it a plan and execute the plan, it's kind of a moot point. So whatever our ideas are, we can capture them, we can write them down, but we can't really execute anything right now. We can execute hiring somebody, we can execute the business model. We're at capacity with that. We're over capacity with that. There's not, and the community events that Nate is working with. So we can't really put more on top of the capacity that we've already reached. And so I think it's a timing issue too. Even if there was a lot of support for it right now, it couldn't be done until we hire people that can also contribute to the planning and execution of this team. So I mean, it's like wait and see, in 3 months, 4 months, where is this team? How is the new team taking shape? And when there is conversation around future QF rounds, maybe one of the future QF rounds might be more cultural than technical. And maybe that will make perfect sense at the time. But here, February 6th, it's not even something we have the capacity to think about.
thank you. I mean that gives me like the whole context, and yeah, I am really open to feedback. I like dialogue, and the last thing I wanted to say would be that in Gravity, what we are trying to design as our new product is going to be a leadership training. We see that there's a lot of need around leadership development, and I'd love to invite all the TEC community, because sometimes yeah, we end up working in a team or leading in a team without talking about that, or maybe there's some things that we can learn from leadership to implement to improve workflows, organization, coordination. So yeah, what I would like to do with that training is to invite the TC, and also um, I have always felt a huge commitment to the TC from Gravity, and that in any way that we can um, use that leadership training also to as something um, that offers an advantage to the TC, or as a product also of the TC. That's something that um, we are very happy to do, but to do that, um, yeah, we just need to feel that there's a space. So I understand maybe we will take some time, and we are aiming for this leadership training to be done on mid of the year. But it'd be really cool if we can also promote it within the TEC, and also say that as one of the cultural products that was born from the TC, we are also trying to impact yeah, multiple communities with this need around talking and developing leaders. So that's my thing, and I'm sorry for crashing, and I will allow the sprint planning, and I really love and respect you all. Thanks.
Thank you, Wonka.
So, yeah, thanks, Wonka. So where did we leave off? We left off on capital allocation strategy turning into actionable items for this month from the people in the room, right?
Yeah, yeah, I would think so. Part of that is like, what would probably be the best approach to take kind of like these priorities and make them part of Notion, right? Could this be like maybe just projects, um, tasks?
Um, yeah, this is a good question. I mean, there's not many of us, and we each know what it is that we will focus on with this. I want to, because I'm going to just throw this out to Bear, Gideon, and Nate. Do we want to prioritize this list? How did you imagine? I know you put a lot of thinking into this, Bear, and I want to respect that. How do you imagine us looking at this list?
So, I mean, what I can think of right now, I think, okay, so I think it might be a good idea to make these items projects, and then maybe what we can do is to try to find an owner for each of these, or to have like a clear responsible for this. And I think most of them already have one, like the recruiting process. I'm kind of like leading that. Gideon is leading the business model, and we can also add like the collaborators and the people who are participating in those. But there might be some others that we are not thinking as much, or that we might be already talking about it, but we haven't kind of like formalized into actual projects with some responsible, like for example the like the token utility explorations. I mean, I know that we've had that conversation in the past, but I don't know if that's something that's going to happen this month or who is going to lead that, if YGG might be interested. So maybe getting some clarification on these priorities, and then just kind of like finding those owners. And of course, we need to clean up the whole board of projects and tasks and to update that. But I can take some time to do that after as well.
Would this be a good time to just like clear a lot of things, or I don't know? I was just curious because like if we're going to this monthly cadence, I really do like the idea of having a priority list of kind of projects or tasks that at the end of that month, if we can look at that board and see that everything is done, we'll be like, yes, we succeeded this month. And being able to just everybody having if it's just 4 big projects that we can all kind of help and swarm if need be, and it's not so like confined to like individual tasks.
Yeah, I just put in the chat a couple of things that are, if you look at the strategy doc, there are some things that are kind of open assumptions that that make me nervous, right? Because they're not defined. And so there's reputation, which is going to be so important, I think, to being able to select projects. I'm having some conversations with YGG and Octopus about that. They both seem to be pretty interested. There's the bounties program. Is that real, or is that just like our imagination? So Mark is very interested in that. I think there's this whole question of like, could the Token Engineering Commons run retro PGF round, like using Gitcoin's platform? I don't know. Like, I don't even know, but I think that's like, either we should look and see if that's even possible, or just kill it pretty soon, I think. And then there's this whole question of, in the model, there is this, Griff has been talking for a while about a liquidity pool for TEC, OP. I think it raises a lot of questions, especially if we're trying to generate a lot of tribute. So those feel like at least 4 things that are kind of hanging out there that we don't know enough about, I think, and would be good to at least get some initial research and some initial kind of assessment on.
Okay. This is exciting. What I see is a big hodgepodge of a bunch of things that's like, it's kind of like a brain dump of what we're all thinking about, all the things that we're thinking about. And so I think what we do here is we say, here are the things that will happen in February with priority, we know we'll do. And here are other things that are, using our cognitive load. But I mean, maybe we can do that. Like if we is everyone in this agenda? Can you just highlight the things that, these 2 are the clear priorities for me. I know these things are happening in February, and we can, we can go through the little, we can create an issue for it, and in the issue have all of the tasks that need to be completed for that to be finished. Token utility explorations. Is that I don't know that that's happening. I don't know that there's anyone leading it. I know there's a token utility weekly. Does that happen? Does it not happen? Who is, like, for me, that's less certain. TQF clarification. Maybe this is the same thing. Maybe this is where we need to figure out with YGG what he's committing to doing here. Community events. I feel like, Nate, you already have that. You have a lot of that scoped out already. Is this helpful? I don't. There's just so much of this. Like, I don't know what to do with all of this. This is like like what? Yeah, I don't know what to do with all this. Is like maybe we can go through and be like uncertain with this one. We need to ask why GG. Like I don't even know what to do with these. QF rounds development. Are we doing QF rounds development in February? Like, I have a feeling this is going to be a lot of work for Bear, for Gideon, for Tam, also maybe for YGG and some, some YGG and NT, right? This is, does that make sense? This, I think, is also really Gideon Bear, community events, mainly Nate, right? Maybe some support with Ephra. How much more do we see actually happening? I mean, for both you, Gideon, you have, the reputation attestation. Is it YGG leading this, or are you sort of like loosely following along a conversation? How does that?
Yeah. I I feel like it seems to me that the business model is far enough along that I think if we can use it to just set the compensation, it then is in decent shape, and I feel like it would be a better use of time to try to then identify some of these open issues, that strategy. And I'm totally game for being catalyst on like working with Mark on the bounties with the goal of, by March deciding, is this even something that's worth continuing? It's like a go no go decision, like working with us all to like figure out go no go so that we can have some kind of clear sense of what the year is going to, what our priorities are going to be. Is it even in the realm of possibility, I guess? And same thing with the reputation attestation. Like, what are we really trying to tackle? Because if those things are not possible, then we need to we need to change our thinking around about how we're gonna, what kind of grants we're gonna be submitting and all that kind of stuff. So that's I guess maybe that's the simplest way I would describe it, is like, how do we figure out whether this is something that we actually want these new hires to be focused on? Maybe that's the simplest way to describe it.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I could say, for example, on the retro PGF for the TEC, actually today it was the first I signed up with this kind of like course or program by Gitcoin, the Easy Retro PGF, and there's gonna be like a series of classes. Like, I think they are like 7 classes or modules to learn more about how to run your own retro PGF round. I think that's gonna be super super interesting. So I could probably be the person right now, at least, that can be informing that conversation. Of course, waiting until we're able to bring someone to take on the programs and actually start thinking more and developing the actual rounds, right? But in the meantime, I'm kind of like answering this question that Gideon is trying to figure out also with Mark about bounties. I could also be doing the same thing for the retro PGF if it's something feasible. And the other thing that I wanted to also bring into our attention, I think we're also in a really great position. It's kind of like a bit weird, uncomfortable, because we've probably never done it here in the TC. But I think we are in a position that we're starting to be able to plan more and better in advance. And I think for that, it's important that we start building certain tools, like a roadmap for the year. I think that should be something really key. And as part of that, maybe some of you have already seen it. I shared it once in the TEC call. I've been building this roadmap on a spreadsheet that I think ideally should live on the what do you mean, on Notion, and to have that there. but I think it's super useful to start thinking, for example, of, okay, if we're taking the budget and we're saying we're going to have 2 QF rounds, or that's what we're projecting to maybe have one retro PGF round. How does this look like? How much time do we need to plan ahead for a QF round? So based on our prior experience, just as an example, we can say that we usually take about a month executing the round, but we should have like a month at least for preparing the round, and then a month after the round is closed to send out payments and all the work that needs to be done. So that basically means that for every QF round that we do, we need at least 3 months of preparation, or three months of work. If we're doing 2 QF rounds, that means 6 months, right? If we're doing a retro PGF round, that means and just as an estimate, we take the same amount. That's another 3 months. We have 9 months already that we need to organize across the year somehow. At least if it doesn't happen that way, it's just kind of like a parallel thing that we do with the budget. Those are the numbers and this is the timeline. So at least we have an idea of what we need to do. So for example, that's why that was the reason why I brought up the QF round, maybe for February, because based on, I think, Gideon, you mentioned that the QF round, the Gitcoin people were thinking probably to have it at the end of April. So I think that's key. That's a really important date that we need to consider, because then we start planning backwards, and we realize that we don't have much time. Like, we actually need to hire that person in February, because then we'll probably just have March to try to kind of like develop and improve the QF round based on our past experience, and then start executing on it, start reaching out to projects, sponsors, all that type of work. So I think my idea here was also for us to be able to exercise this muscle of kind of like long-term thinking and preparing for what is going to come, so it doesn't happen, and we are not ready for that kind of thing. So I know it also overwhelms me a bit as well, but I think it overwhelms me more to be on the unknown of not knowing what's going to happen in the coming months, right? So yeah, just wanted to bring this up and see what you guys think.
And Percy, I think it's super useful for something that we need to pull into the sprint. It's obvious that we need a go no go decision. Like that, so that just jumps out for me. And if it's a go decision, then a plan for how to execute it. But it's, again, I think all of these things, even the roadmap, is contingent on hiring. So if we hire somebody in 2 weeks, that's a very different scenario than if we hire somebody at the end of March, right? So if I keep coming back to this, like, we have great ideas, we just need to get people like people that can execute on these things now. Like, there's really is, like, I think there really is like and I don't know how much you want to do of this, Bear, to be like, well, we may go forward, or figure out if, with the resources we have available, without hiring somebody before the end of the month, do we go forth with QF round? For what time frame? I mean, is that something that you feel like you want to work on more than just a go no go decision, but like a QF round strategy, like a QF round planning? Is this something you want to work on during February?
I mean, I'm with you, Tim. Like, if I could, I would love to, right? I think it would be great if we could actually have a QF round in April, like the Gitcon people are planning. But I mean, for me, the priority is the hiring, right? I think we need to get these people as soon as we can, and a lot is gonna depend on that. So I'm not trying to bring like more ideas or more work. I'm just trying for us to try to think more like long term and be able to take that for our present planning of this month. That's just it. I think for this month, this might be like what we can take on, and it's probably like the most important stuff that we can do right now.
One thing that jumps out to me is, if we really think about these two positions, the grant program is way more urgent. Like, getting that person hired is the ecosystem one. it wouldn't kill us if we didn't hire that person until like the end of March or even like mid-April. But the programs person, like we got to get that person on board ASAP. So I think, and then I think the other thing would be like, we've run these rounds before. I'm not saying that there's no work. I mean, there's a ton of work. We know what the work is though. So I think we could run it exactly like we ran it in the past. Like, don't get fancy. Just, run it, get coin, run it, like run it on OP, do the very basic things and kind of get some of that stuff. I think make a go no go decision within the next couple of weeks about, if the April date, I think pretty confident. I heard that came directly from Ben, who's at Gitcoin. So it seemed like 90%. So it's kind of like a bet of like, can we, like what would be involved for two scenarios? One where we have to kind of limp along and do it without the person on board, and then the other is we've got the person on board. And how, like make a go no go decision based on those probabilities. Seems like that would be one.
I do just want to say that whoever we hire for this grants program position, like there's a lot to be onboarded and a lot of context to understand to run around like this. I mean, I don't know too many people who have done Inti's role prior to this, and I think the selection of people who have a good understanding of how Gitcoin works, how to filter projects, how to go through the entire process. You may have trouble finding that person who has an understanding of those types of things, and so onboarding this person is something that we have to take into consideration, especially in this first grant round, to really understand and say, okay, we need to have somebody onboarded, even if they don't have context. We can, as a team, go through this grant program and go through the grant round together as a group, and maybe give them a little bit more context than what they would normally have. But I just that is one of my concerns, is that the people who have the kind of understanding and context of how to run a Gitcoin grant round and have a kind of understanding of like what we're trying to accomplish with the token engineering aspect of that is not as easy as it may seem. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
%. Yeah, I totally agree, and I think this actually might give us the guidance to decide whether we should go for it or no. I think we should. And hopefully we have the person. If it's onboarded, if it's not onboarded, we know how to do it. It might not be like what Gideon was saying. Like we are kind of like getting better at automating this process. So maybe something simple we can do with the people that we have, and actually run the round. I think it would be really good, because if we don't run it, then we probably have to wait until the summer without any round, right? So I mean, that's what I would probably say right now. The other two things is that I probably move up to the February priorities, the funding proposal for the coordination team. I think that's something that also ties together with hiring and with the business model and the budget. We probably will have enough funds to cover for February, but that's still a question mark. We have around 7K left in the multisig. For January, we spent around 7K. So we might be like just there to be able to cover for compensation during that month. But it will be important anyways to start working on the proposal, on the impact reports of the past few months from the team, and all this type of work. So yeah, I just wanted to include that.
Here's another lens on this that I think, it's worth considering. So much of our success this year boils down to funding from optimism. I mean, it's just so clear to me that that's where we're going to survive or not. So from that perspective, I think that we can break this up into kind of two chunks. One is what are the things that we need to do in order to increase our likelihood for the retro PGF 4, and getting like a nice big boost on that. And I think that one of those things is running around. And the running around, like, there are just these windows that are not really in our control. And so I do think it's worth, even if it hurts us, even if it's hard to do, like running that round in April, I think is really critical. It's strategic for us to do that and really try to like tie it into optimism as much as we can. I think that some of these other things are more tied into the whole idea of like, if we can succeed somehow in getting a missions grant that's focused on token engineering, the reputation thing and the bounties thing is kind of more tied into that. And that, I think we won't even know on whether that's going to happen until like later in the year. So if we don't start on that until like the April-May timeframe, it's not ideal, but like it's more important to get this grant out, or that this next round up and running, I think. And these other things can be a little bit slower, but we have to just continue to make progress on them. So yeah, that's my sense.
Really good point.
Yeah, I think you're doing a great job, Tam, kind of like organizing those items. Yeah, I think there are some that are urgent for February, and then the others are things that we can start thinking of, that we can start doing stuff, but that are not like urgent. They are important, but not urgent. The February ones are important and are urgent. I think that'd be probably the difference.
Yeah, this was good, actually. This turned out to be a really clarifying session. So I think this are the February priorities. The recruiting process. I will be lending a hand here too. Oh no, my mouse just stopped working. Sorry. I will be lending a hand here too. Community events, Nate is really, I think, championing that. Bounties, I know, Gideon, that's sort of like not your top priority, but something that is just like slowly unfolding. So it requires, your attention from time to time. QF round development, how do we do this? How do we do this month?
Well, I mean, I think it would be good to maybe try to turn this QF round for April into some sort of, again, like project, or print something in Notion, assign dates to it, and assign like these phases, like pre-planning, execution, and post. So we know when do we have to actually start doing stuff, no matter if we have the hire or if we don't, we know that we have to start basically following up the playbook, right? I think most of it is there. Maybe the question is, should we just take on this as a collective, or should we have like an owner? That's the thing that I might not be as clear.
Owner.
Yeah.
Owner, even if the owner divvies work out to different people.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the other thing is, all of us just like mentally being prepared to say, March, we may all have to set aside all other TE priorities. Actually, not may. It's probably likely that a big chunk of March is going to be us all kind of digging in, because even if we get this new person hired, per Nate's point, there's going to be just a lot of like hand holding and support that we're all going to need to do to get this round, running. And I'm totally willing to. I mean, I'm willing to throw some energy at that. I mean, Nate, that may mean that for some of the events, well, I mean, I think that the events can definitely support this, right? Like we just basically make all the events be about this, right, in the lead up.
Yeah, there's an entire program that we can run for it, and I just think it's a really good idea for whoever we do hire is there kind of just like, hey, observe everything, make sure you get everything, understand the process of what we're doing, but also like having the context of like the OP strategy and what we're focusing on with the grant round, and making sure that we're kind of heading to this larger goal of like impacting the optimism community and making sure that we're setting ourselves up for retro PGF later on in the year.
Yeah, so I think that maybe if we were to create like a project that's starting in March, we know that we need to start working on the QF round, no matter the circumstances. I think that probably be helpful. Also, trying to think a bit about sponsors, right? I think that was something that the last round we kind of like lacked some time to do, and maybe some coordination. So that might be something that we could improve on for this upcoming round.
And depending on what Andy hears back from the Arbitrum folks, that could knock out that requirement, right? Because that might be the funds.
True. Yeah, that's true. I mean, for me, and this kind of like goes back a bit into the business model conversation. I really resonate with this comment from Isaac about not being afraid of asking for money, and of course, if we have the capacity, maybe for this one we won't, as we are talking about. But if we have the capacity and time, I think it would still probably be good to have this as a goal to try to have all the rounds funded by sponsors, and I think that could probably like actually at the end of the year have a really positive impact in the finances of the TEC, right? But yeah, 100% agree with you. Like on this one, we might not have to be out looking for sponsors as a priority.
I'm just curious, is there a way for these Gitcoin rounds? I know that people can donate directly to projects, but directly to the round itself. And I don't know if it does exist, if we've actually explored the use of it.
You mean like to have like a TEC round within the
No,
round?
I'm speaking like instead of looking for like one big sponsor, it's kind of like crowdfunding sponsors are saying, hey, instead of like donating to individual projects, you have the option to donate directly to the matching round, the matching pool.
I see. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, no. I mean, I think this is one of those questions that we need to time to think of, as part of kind of like the program development of the QF rounds, and see if that's a possibility. I mean, I think it'd be really interesting.
Yeah, Anthony and I talked to Octopus about that, like the math of that. Because, I mean, you could imagine setting up just a project, right? TC puts its own project in there. It's like, add to the match, right? But Octopus was like looking at like what that might do to the math around QF. But it's worth looking at.
So,
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail.
no, it's fine. I'm just starting to add things to this sprint. This sprint being February 6th to March 5th. This recruitment, I'm just assigning it to all of us, and we can build this out or separate it into different pieces. Is this okay by everyone? Is this what you feel like? Do we not want to use the sprint board anymore? Let me say that. Do we want to use some other mechanism for this lower cadence sprint to track our progress? I just wanted, because I'm feeling like maybe that's the case. And if that's the case, maybe that's can do something else?
I think it's good to keep it in Notion. I think we're going to come back to Notion. Like, we're going to need some mechanism for tracking our stuff, so we might as well just stay in the habit. That's my view.
Okay. All right. Then for the next QF round, oops, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, just wanted to confirm that. Yeah, I also think we should keep it there. Yeah, I find it super useful.
Okay, awesome. Okay. I wasn't sure if I misunderstood something somehow, and I wanted to be 100% clear. So setting up the project for the next QF round. I know, Bear, there's too much on you already, but is this something that you want to own, but like be like, Tam, I need help with this. Gideon, I need help with this. Nate, I need you, like, is that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I can take on that.
Okay, and it would just be to sort of set up the project around it, not necessarily doing all the work, but get the planning and timeline and dependencies locked. Okay, awesome.
100%.
So
Yeah.
now we have, oh, cool. All right, now we have the last one is the CT funding proposal. I didn't put bounties on. I could put bounties on. I don't know what bounties falls in. For now, I mean, is bounties its own project, or it's like maybe it's like bounties discovery is like a precursor to a full project, and then if we actually implement bounties, that's its own project.
Yeah, I would describe it, both the bounties and the reputation attestation, as like a slow burn, like assessment. Bounties, opportunity assessment. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's perfect.
And maybe we could capture in there as well the retro PGF rounds. I mean, I'm really confident on it, but maybe it'd be a good idea to include it there.
What do you mean? What do you mean, Bear? Can you?
Yeah. Sorry. So yeah, kind of like thinking more about the actual viability of running our own retro PGF round, and just making
Got
sure
it.
that it's something
Now I
we
understand.
actually
I got
can
you.
do.
I got it.
And just one quick thing about that. The reason that I think that the retro PGF round is important for us is it may be the fastest way, like the simplest way for us to ensure impact. Like, we could do a lot of work to like do like impact assessment processes and shit like that, but I mean, not shit like that and things like that because it's important. But I mean, it is really important. But this may be like a shortcut for us that is easy for people to understand.
I'm going to leave those in the back burner. But that's a good point. I'm going to leave those on a back burner. But am I giving reputation? And is anyone sort of like going down that path? I'll just leave it in. Or does somebody want to have the?
Sorry, you can assign that to me for sure. I'm definitely pushing that forward with those guys, and you know, the goal is to just, is this real or is it not?
Okay. And I won't bring these two into the sprint, or do we?
No, I think it's good.
What do you think?
You don't need to bring it in. I'll just keep working on it.
And for you, Bear, same about the retro PGF, or do you want to sort of, since it's going to take some of your time, pull it in, or?
No, I think it's okay. I think right now it's just basically taking this course and learning about it. I don't think it's necessary to put it on the sprint.
Okay. And then what we're missing is, did we do these January CT payments?
Oh yeah, that's done. I probably need to update my board based on the last print. Yeah,
no problem. I'll just pull it into the sprint so you can close it in the sprint. Then the last thing we're doing is the team budget. And oh God, it's like I feel like this is so painful because I'm like, and Bear, do you want more? Very fair. We have to hire. We have to hire.
It's okay. No, I can take
mean,
it. I'd be happy.
okay.
Again, I feel like over this next month and a half, I'm willing to dig in a little bit more, just to kind of get us to the place where we can bring these people in and start sharing the love. So, Bear, I will, yeah, I'll work with you. You can assign me stuff. How about that? Just make me one of your workers.
All right.
Yeah, no, sounds great.
So,
We can all work together on all of this. Sounds perfect.
yeah, and same. I mean, please don't hesitate to reach out when you need support on something. Like, be aggressive, please. Especially now, be aggressive. All right, we have 4 minutes. I think, does everyone want to look at this and see if we need to do, okay, so those we added to the board. Why don't we just add these two? Token liquidity pool. I don't know where to put it. I don't know where to put that. Token utility explorations, TQF clarification. Well, why don't we just add them as is and not like literally TBD until we could figure out where to put it, just so we don't end up losing it. And I'm sorry I'm calling this TBD, but that's what it is now. Token utility explorations. And lastly, okay, what does the 2QF mean? What are we doing there? Okay. All right. So whoops, these I didn't mean to add to the sprint. Oops, daisy. And this one. So it looks like this is then our sprint number 5, beam development. This is mostly closed. Actually, I'll probably just close this. Facilitating Scrum events and staying hiring committee, hiring advice. That's just on my own personal one because I added it before I put this recruitment here. January CT payments, QF round, opportunity assessments, CT funding, ecosystem content planning for UNATE. And that looks like this month. I mean, it doesn't look like a lot, but there's really not a lot of us here. I mean, like in terms of weekly hours. So, does this seem good to everyone? Can I get, yeah, okay, yay. All right, in our last 2 minutes before we leave, let's end on a high note. What is the one thing you're looking forward to this week more than anything else? And I'll pass it to you, Nate, to get us started.
Work-wise, or
However you choose.
actually, I'm really excited that I'm taking Kepler to the Monterey Bay Aquarium this weekend, or Friday. So that's what I'm excited about. So his birthday is coming up in a couple months, and he's just getting into underwater stuff. So really interested in doing that. So yeah, I'll pass it over to you, Bear.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the weekend. It's one of my grandfather's birthday. So it's gonna be nice to be able to be here in Mexico and spend time with him and be on that important date for him. So yeah, that's what I'm looking for. That's a nice emoji, Tam. I haven't seen that one of a grandpa. That's a good one. I'll pass it to you, Tam.
I have a child who's turning 15 this weekend, so that's probably like the number one thing that I'm looking forward to. I didn't even know what I was going to answer, but as we were thinking about it, I was like, yeah, that's like the big thing for me. I'm excited about that. And you, Gideon?
Mine's a little bit nerdy, but I'm starting a class, a Buddhist class on Saturday with this teacher I really like, and yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. A little bit nerdy.
Cool. Excellent. Cool. Thanks, everyone. This was a kind of tough session to slog through, but I feel like it was actually super productive and useful at the end. So thanks for all that. It's all because of you.
And Tim, you did an awesome job of driving that process of like pushing.
Cool.
That was great. Really
Cool.
nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Oh,
you.
thanks. Okay. All right. I'll see you guys later this week.
Thank you so
Bye,
much, Sam.
everyone. See you.
See you
Bye.
guys.
Got a happy birthday.
Bye.